Hi, everybody. Welcome to Untapped. My name is Maureen, the even the queen, the even the princess, whichever one you prefer. I'm not chilling alone. I'm chilling with the one and only.
Mash D.
How do you do, Meshti? What's
I'm
happening?
fresh and I'm fresh and I'm fresh. Just get fresher.
What's up? What's the mood? What's happening? How
You
you
know,
feeling?
you know
How's
the
the
diamonds,
week?
the diamonds, man. The diamonds in production get brighter in the pressure.
I
The
love
Bayway.
it.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode. If you're new here, please subscribe. If you're returning, please subscribe. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you're tapped into so we can tap into that as well. Let's
Yeah.
get on with it, sir. What have you been tapped into?
So like I got two things
Okay.
on my mind right now. And it's like both of them I can't like properly articulate. So it's
Okay.
like today I'm gonna have to read. Like
It's okay.
I put the ideas across like on paper. So like the first thing was like the whole issue around what's been happening with the spaza shops and like people dying from like contamination and so I've been leaning towards for the most part towards um these people are just selling expired goods. These people are producing their things in their backyards because from time to time you'll see a video of that and stuff. But I always like it when conversations like that are still manned. Like someone will go to the complete opposite side of the spectrum and like just make you think of what might be going on. So someone on my contact list posted a status one day. It was around mid-month, like midway through October. But like I took screenshots, but I never really got a chance to like engage with the thing, with the whole like what was going on. But then it came back again when it was trending on Twitter recently. And I was like, okay, let me just put all of this together and like the tweets I found. And some of the things I found. So I just want to say everything, and then I just want to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
So what this person had said was, if you're not smart enough to understand who is behind the food poisoning in the townships, then you'll realize that those that you're blaming aren't the ones. No sane businessman would wake up one day and decide to kill kids knowing what the end result will be. But it's for you to think about. People who can't beat competition can stoop very low. I'm unapologetic about this. I don't care about your thoughts, right? I'm not going to say who it was because I didn't ask them to like use what they had said. And then they posted a little screenshot from Kasi Economy on Twitter. And it was ShopRite plans to double the numbers of U-Safe stores to 1,000 in the next 5 years to tap into townships and informal economies. The company currently has 463 stores, so like half of that. ShopRite CEO Peter Engelbrecht says there is room for 1,000 U-Safe stores in South Africa. And then he posted another status. He's like, the literacy rate of Somalia, Ethiopia, and Pakistani combined is not above 35%. The model was all survival in a country that is insanely unfriendly to foreign nationals who have managed to control 70% of market value at 900 billion rand. They saw the gaps and exercised everything they could. They now own the entire value chain. One day they decide to wake up and kill, losing 70% control of one of the biggest economies. Make it make sense, guys, right? And then what triggered these that I had screenshotted a while ago was more recently there's a Twitter account, Mainland Africa, that was posting this, right? So, and they were also sort of contrarian. They had a contrarian view on it. So more like they were with like what he's saying. So the first one is this year, the National Consumer Commission urged consumers to immediately stop consuming Dischem Lifestyle brand peanut butter, Wazugul's Superfood peanut butter, Eden All Natural peanut butter, and Pick and Pay No Name Smooth peanut butter due to health concerns. Those who purchased the products were advised to return them back for a full refund with or without the original purchase slip. That's how bad it was. No recourse for those who already consumed the products. Another one. On the 30th of September 2024, Spar Group initiated the recall of the Top Score instant porridge brand due to health and safety concerns. The product in question has a best before date of 6 February 2026. Consumers who purchase the product are advised to return it for a full refund. No recourse for those who already consumed the product. And then this year, the National Consumer Commission urged consumers to immediately stop consuming Dischem. I already brought that one up. And then, this part was on the Times Live. Recently had an article regarding what happened at the Naledi Spaza shop, right? And this was, so basically they said that it was confirmed by Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi during a media briefing on Friday after health officials conducted inspections at the Spaza shops. The owners told officials about a chemical they buy at a local shopping mall. During the search, the owners confessed that there is an illegal chemical they buy from a mall in Johannesburg. 27 officials went to the mall and confiscated 1.456 grams of the chemical. 4 people were arrested, 1 man and 3 women, for selling the illegal chemical. So, yeah, like all of that, like
that is a lot.
Yeah.
There's so many things to think about with that. I think what comes up to me as like the first thing is that the Kasi economy, I mean, a lot of people in South Africa live in the townships. So the engine and kind of the heartbeat of the South African economy is in the townships. Like if you can tap into the townships, you can control a lot in South Africa, right? And there's obviously the part about South Africans complaining that when foreign nationals came in, they lost their spaza shops. Some of them sold their spaza shops and gave their ownership or just the control to foreign nationals to run from Somali, from Ethiopia, things like that, right? Pakistanis as well. But for me, I think that I think about it I'm kind of invested in it because of Spaza Eats.
Yeah.
And the fact that ecosystem, Spaza Eats, Spaza Market, is aimed at fueling and developing and upgrading that market and actually kind of formalizing it to a certain extent, right? And so when I hear of things like this, it makes me wonder how much of the formal sector has control into the informal sector and how much they're willing to do to actually sabotage and stop it from actually happening, which is wild because this sector it's people who are starting stuff from scratch, right? They're using the little they have. They're investing their last of their money. I would say Spaza shops themselves, wholesalers that are in townships, things like Spaza Eats. These are people starting startups based on the township markets that nobody was looking at until people start seeing that
they recognize how big of a market it is.
When they could have actually invested in properly in the first place instead of just neglecting it and let it be a loner child. Now that the people have kind of pulled themselves out of their own bootstraps that, by the way, they don't even have, and they're seeing that it's actually working, it's almost like instead of even collaborating with that market, let's sabotage. So it makes me think of that, with how much of that and how much are big corporates willing to do to kind of sabotage that part of the market, right? which is sad to see because they could have been collaborating, they could have fueled it, they could have invested in it properly, they could have invested in a sustainable way that could actually benefit the people that stay within the townships, not actually going into the townships and taking the money, but also just feeding the township itself, helping the people in the townships to take care of themselves, right? So that gets me worried.
Because, like, even if you think of the fact that these things exist, like poisonous food, they exist at like the big corporates, but there's never outrage. So that makes me think of like sort of the psychological phenomenon of like displacement, where we're so fearful of the actual enemy, and then we start shunning the small guy.
But I think it's not, like, I agree that's what happens, but there is a big machine that fuels that runs that. Because why is it that when we hear about the township, we hear about it? It's everywhere, right? Everybody writes on it. Everybody puts it on your face. You hear, newspapers are covering it. TV is covering it. Everyone is like, Twitter, it's trending on Twitter. But when Discam gets told the same thing, it's almost like when they report
that's what I mean. Like we don't react like an example that would seem like completely different, but is exactly similar to what I'm saying about it being this thing of displacement. Is look at our Afrophobia, right? There's a whole problem in Cape Town where Europeans come and overstay their visa, right? But it's like, no one. Yeah, it's like they then end up.
They're taken in good faith.
Yeah, they talk about applying for citizenship, and we're not even outraged. We're never outraged. So it's like, because they have a higher economic standing, there's this subconscious fear we have of them, right? So we never really get outraged at them, and then we get outraged at the small guy that is.
But I think, Mesh, I think it's the fact that our fear is displaced, yes. But I also feel like it's this idea that, like, if somebody has money, they can't do wrong, right? That's why white collar crimes, is so, because when somebody has money, it's like if they do something wrong or do something illegal, it's like, oh, it was a mistake. They didn't mean to do that. Obviously, but if somebody does the exact same thing in the township, it's like, yep, they're meant to do that. Like we take the guy that has money in good faith and the guy that's kind of coming up in bad faith in our minds. They're like, a guy who has money is innocent until proven guilty, and a guy who doesn't have money is guilty until they're proven innocent.
Okay, so on that township economy chat, right? Don't you? Okay, maybe this is a conversation for another day, but don't you think the fact that we are fed this narrative that there's a township economy and then there's like an urban, like, main economy, because it's one economy. Like there isn't, like the gross domestic product is literally one metric, right? If you're saying people from the township economy are purchasing from a wholesaler, where are those sales reflected?
Because technically, the wholesaler is actually selling the same products that are being sold at any other store in the city.
Yeah.
Like in the main.
So it's like dumbing it down, right? It's like creating the township economy type narrative is also, it also feeds into, not to kind of get the products that aren't the products you access in the township economy, you need to access the urban economy. So I think there's a lot
that is a rabbit hole you can go into.
It's a crazy rabbit hole. It's like something that I was also thinking about based off of something I came across recently, Ting, about how there isn't a developed country in this world. Like, every country is developing. Some countries are more developed than others, but there is no developed country. Every country is emerging. I've been to,
but do you say
4 different continents, and like, there isn't a single continent I've been to where I didn't notice some construction happening. So they are not developed.
Would you say they are underdeveloped countries?
Under how? Like, all countries are developing, because if they're under, then people wouldn't be able to live there.
But you know what? Like, even just the whole metrics of judging what's developed, what's developing, what's underdeveloped is like, because
Someone was talking about how, like, the England outside of London isn't that great a country.
but you can say that about a lot of
Developed countries.
You can say that a lot about these countries that we perceive as like the holy mecca or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I don't like the fact that, and I guess back to your whole chat about township economies and all of that, I don't like the narrative that, like, when people go into countries that are maybe not technologically advanced, but like their ecosystem is nice. People feed themselves. People make their own clothes. They kind of control their own ecosystem. I don't like how that kind of gets perceived as, oh, it's an underdeveloped country.
Fam,
It's not it's like,
have you seen Isla Randavura in the villages,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're rare these days, but I remember when I was young, the Mukura, hobo una Randavura, and what used to fascinate me, even as a kid, was how it would be warm inside when it was cold, and it would be cold inside when it was hot. Like, that speaks to how the smartness, right? The level of smartness of like the people that actually worked on those on those structures, right? They knew quite a lot about the earth. They were more connected with the earth than
the metrics we're using to judge these things is rigged,
contorted, and we just accept. Yeah.
And it goes into everything. And
it goes into everything. Like, the next thing I was saying, like, I'm tapped into, which I also need to sort of read, is like a recent article I came across. Yeah, Africa No Filter, right? And it's an article on the cost of media stereotypes to Africa, right? And it basically taps into the relationship between media, investment, and economic development. So, some of the key findings from the report. So the main key finding is obviously that Africa loses up to 4.2 billion annually, right, in interest payments due based on the media coverage. Just based off of the media coverage, we lose 4.2 billion. So here are some of the key findings. African countries receive more media attention during elections, but with a disproportionate focus on negative issues like violence and election fraud. You saw what Trump did at the White House after he lost the election to Biden. Okay. Africa receives higher negative sentiment and bias scores in media compared to non-African countries with similar political risks. Violence is highly associated with Africa in election coverage, especially in headlines. Negative media sentiments increase perceived risk, leading to higher borrowing costs for African countries. Because obviously the risk profile is higher, right?
Yeah.
African nations are unjustifiably seen as higher risk by investors, resulting in higher credit costs compared to similar non-African countries. The full impact of media bias extends beyond debt costs and likely affects other sectors like tourism, shaped by negative risk sentiment in media.
You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think of how we have been forced to adapt to this. It's gonna sound so cliche, but we've been forced to adapt into this Western world, and our economic growth has been measured on these Western standards, right? And how we're supposed to present ourselves in our nature as Africans has been measured on Western standards. And what I mean by this is that our countries had to get rid of the whole chiefs ruling countries, or chiefs, or the king ruling a country or a section or whatever, right? We've had to adapt to having
Something
a
that
president.
MK party is exploring quite extensively.
That MK chat, we need to
Okay.
get to it. But like, it's right. It's like we've now been forced to adapt to having a president, having a cabinet, having this and that, and that I mean, we had a similar thing in that the king would have advisors.
But even
they would have a
if we say
council.
we adopt that, why can't they coexist?
But my thing is that when you look at that, we're measured, and how things are reported about Africa is measured on those bases, right? How much we have assimilated into the Western world and how much we have not assimilated into the Western world. So when you report on things like that, you are inherently going to look at the negatives, because already from our beginning standpoint, we don't come from a place where this Western culture is normal for us. Okay, like it's not.
So it's like judging a fish by its ability to run.
Right. Instead of the Western world. So my thinking of countries being independent and Africa being independent and being free is the West and all these big countries kind of saying, okay, cool, Africa, this is how you do your thing. Let's kind of meet in the middle. Let's coexist in how you want to do things and why we want to do things. Let's find ways to actually work together. But it's almost as if we have to assimilate into this world in order for us to be a safe, an economically growing, whatever
an
feeds
investment
into,
haven.
An investment haven. We have to feed into this narrative that, oh, we have a cabinet, we have a president who dresses like this, who presents himself.
I saw a clip of the president of Ghana snitching on the president of Burkina Faso to like a US ambassador.
So, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. Today, Russian mercenaries are on our northern border. Burkina Faso has now entered into an arrangement to go along with Mali in employing the Wagner forces there. Prime Minister of Burkina Faso in the last 10 days has been in Moscow. And to have them operating on our northern border is particularly distressing for us in Ghana. We really like to have a privileged opportunity to talk about its implications, to what extent we can have you as a partner in confronting these threats. And therefore it's important that we bring that matter to your notice and see to what extent we can engage you as a reliable partner in the pushback of those forces.
Like, yeah, he's doing this. I'm like, bruh, like, there might be problems. I'm not saying what's happening in Burkina Faso is like non-problematic, but why are you, like, it's not like the US is, why are you snitching?
So just in that fundamental point that like we're trying to assimilate, it's almost like every time we're trying to prove that I've assimilated better than the others.
He was even going like, I need you to help me.
know what I mean?
Like,
Inherently in ourselves.
Mad thing.
That's how we're judging ourselves. So there's no way you're gonna judge yourself from that perspective in a positive way. There's no way you're gonna report from that perspective in a positive way. I don't think it's possible, right? So inherently, that's just going to be something that comes up that we're just gonna see it like just in a bad light. We're gonna be report, and the more we assimilate, the more we are seen as like, that's why people come to South Africa and they're like, wow, a beautiful country. How? Because why? We've assimilated so much. Maybe compared to all the African countries, we are probably the most assimilated country in all of us.
Actually.
And what are we regarded as one of the best economies in Africa, right? But like, if you were to look at it and maybe go in deep into it, maybe there's an angle we're missing.
Bro, even Putin was giving Cyril the side eye at that BRICS summit. Like, you could just tell, like, nah, boy, I don't trust you.
So there's that, and it's a rabbit hole that like you kind of have to go through it. Like, if we were to go into it, it's just like we won't.
It's crazy. We can just keep going.
There's
and going.
different facets of the whole thing that we could tap into. I mean, also just like I always come back to this because I feel like it's fundamental. It's like us as Africans creating our own ecosystem, just in your own community, bruh. Plant some food, fam. Grow some food on your backyard, fam. Like, do something that removes you from depending solely on somebody bringing you something. Because at the very least, that minimizes the amount of interaction you have to have with whatever thing you do not trust. You get me? So, yeah. We're just getting on. What have you been tapped into? So,
Yeah, what have you been tapped into?
Oh, are you done with what you?
Yeah, I just wanted to go with the two because I knew they were going to take time, so let's not go into some of the other things.
What have I been tapped into? A lot. I have a list of stuff. I'm going to try to be structured in how I present it, so I'm going to look down a little bit. So I'm going to start with like a really funny story.
Okay.
So that kind of eases us out from this tense situation.
Sure.
So, and kind of the main topic or the main theme I want you to get out of this is literally the fact that I feel like I'm over getting embarrassed. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if it's an age thing.
You see, when I was, you remember when I was talking to you about like coming across the concept of the Overton window?
Yes.
And I was like, coming across like the concept of the Overton window for me, T, was like, okay, let me cancel myself.
Yeah. Self-cancellation.
Yeah.
Self-cancellation.
Let me cancel myself. Break that Overton window.
You can't cancel me. I have canceled myself.
Exactly.
You get me?
Yeah.
But honestly, it's also, I don't know if it's like an age thing for me or like it's just because I've had enough embarrassing moments in my life. But I'm just like, like, if it's what it is, and life is just a series of embarrassing moments, if we're really being honest. Embarrassing and tragic moments. But anyway, this is the story. So this year, I was like, I'm going to get fit. I'm going to run. That's the easiest. If I can commit to running, I can get myself a gym membership. So every Saturday, I go for park runs, right? 8 a.m., I'm at the park run doing my, weekly run.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, normal Saturday, woke up, got myself to the park run place. We start the park run. I run about like maybe 2 kilometers. So park runs are like 5 kilometers, right?
Okay.
And so I ran about 2 kilometers of the 5, right? And while I'm running, I'm decent. I'm an average runner. So there's a guy that just comes up like right next to me, right? And he's like, I don't get this at park run. So now I'm like, why is just a random guy standing next to me? Tall guy. He comes out to me. He's like, Sisi, tight at the back. Now I look back, my good sir. If it is not my behind.
It's exposed. Damn.
If it is not my behind.
You didn't feel anything, the air.
Nothing. It's hard, fam. It's like in the beginning of the...
Oh my God. That's so
my
embarrassing.
whole behind is literally not really my whole behind, but there's a decent amount of space.
Yeah, the fact that he was able to see it. Yeah.
It's like, and I was like, okay, now there's this situation. What do? I stopped and I'm like, okay, I'm wearing like a shirt and I'm wearing like a bra and like a vest inside. So I take off the shirt that I'm wearing because I'm already wearing like a vest and I cover myself. And like, I was just like, okay, today the park run situation is not happening. It's done. There's no way I'm going to finish this park run, right? But so many things spark out for me on that, right? It's the fact that I was just like, when the guy told me, I was just like, And then I stopped, went into solve problem mode, solved the problem, and just slept. I was just like, we're done. This is what it is.
Yeah.
The second thing
Not ponder too much on like, hey, who saw?
I was like, bruh, like...
Doesn't matter.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
Top 10, not even top 1 embarrassing moments of my entire existence, right? But the second thing that stuck out for me in that situation was this black, tall, older guy who came to me in the most calm, the most considerate, the most...
So it's not the same guy, but it's another guy that noticed what had happened.
No, the same guy.
Okay.
So the same guy came... So I'm trying to describe how this guy told me
Oh, okay.
this is the situation, right?
Okay.
He came up to me in such a calm, loving, just like, yo, sis.
Empathetic.
Yo, sis, there's a situation.
Yeah.
He didn't make me feel weird about it. He was just like, yo, there's a situation. And that for me stuck out for me because I realized in that moment that I have a lot of good men around me. I don't know if it's the fact that I'm fortunate or it's the fact that as a society we don't recognize that part of life. But I really have a bunch of, from my friends, like just guys that are around me that are my friends, from guys that are around me that are my relatives, guys that I work with, guys that I do life with, random situation where a random guy saves me, done in the most considerate, most, empathetic way that doesn't make me feel bad, that doesn't make me feel like in any sort of way. And I think that as a society and as people, maybe who are as fortunate as me, we have to be more vocal about that. We have to be more.
They'll call you a pick-me.
Yeah. I mean, I've cancelled myself.
I've seen a lot of that because the thing about it, is men are viewed as a statistic. As a man, I can say that I've seen it play out too many times. Right? Like, we're just a statistic for the most part. Like, and I'm not saying generically, like, I do come across like amazing women like you that will like think about us in our individuality, right? And that's amazing when you recognize that, okay, I'm being recognized as an individual, right? And I'm not being recognized as a statistic. Because it does more harm than good, right? Because then the same woman that will say something like, men are responsible for creating better men, and like men are solely responsible for creating better men in society, are the same woman that will say, yo, a man's first enabler is his mother. Isn't that mutually exclusive? Like you can't say, hey, Didi's enables his mother because his mother's there defending him and stuff. But you're still saying, at the same time, you're the same person that's saying men are solely responsible for creating this new world where men aren't abusing women, where men don't create safe spaces for women. So I think the one thing that I get from that, right, is just the need to just work together. This.
I don't know why that concept is difficult to get, in my opinion. Honestly, there is no way we're going to build a society. There's no way we're going to build families, society, communities that like divided.
Dude, I was watching,
on our own.
Yeah, I was watching this interview on YouTube, right? And this guy is like attacking this other guy, right? Perhaps rightfully so, but they're not having a conversation. This guy is having the other guy on the platform to just show him how pathetic his point of view is, right? And when the other guy, it was the whole situation around the Woman for Change and Chris Brown. So that was the guy that was like, was talking about, I don't know if you saw him with the tattoos. So he was the guy that was like going off about like Chris Brown and like shunning Women for Change because they've brought him up. I don't know when, and he got attacked and stuff like that. And he was saying, I wasn't guilty. I don't know how guilty he was. But it's like, he was getting interviewed by Darren, the guy that came up during the elections. And I felt like Darren was being the male version of like what the pick me means. You get me? Like what it actually means and not what it's used as, because he knows who he's trying to entice. Like that the performative.
Sorry to cut you off, Mesh, but we need to address this thing that you're just mentioning. Yeah. It's a very important thing. Where men come to communities or the female, like the feminist space or just the safe women's spaces.
I was just about to say, he doesn't, his intention, I felt for me there was like to entice the performative feminist, and actual feminists exist. So he knows the kind of crowd, because there was a part where I'm gonna get to, because I'll just keep going for too long. But what I want to get to in that, like, when that guy questioned him about, like, okay, but what do you think of this? It's like, no, this is not you questioning. I'm just asking you questions and you're answering. Not fair. Ne? Not fair. But at least the other guy was willing to answer. The part that was also worrisome for me was that himself, like, Darren ends up saying, we need to educate, just spewing the narrative that we need to educate men solely, right? And then I actually commented on that thing, because I watched the whole thing. Like, in as much as parts of it was like, I was just like cringe. It was cringeworthy. I was like, okay, let me actually engage in this comment section, because I know the kind of people that he's enticing and what I'm gonna get from it, right? So I'm like, yo, how about we educate them both? You know, not just the victim. And then someone was like, hey, what are you gonna tell? By both, like, the perpetrator and the potential perpetrator, because this is a little kid, right? The potential perpetrator and the potential victim. How about we educate them both, not just the perpetrator? And someone's like, what are you gonna tell the victim? Don't be a victim. I'm like, no. And my comment got deleted. I'm not sure if it was by YouTube or if it was by Darren himself. Because by owning a YouTube channel, I do know now that we have power to, like, veto someone, right? But, like, I went in depth into the kinds of things I tell my nieces. Like, yo, if you're going to a club, be sure that you don't you're always cognizant of your drink so it doesn't get spiked. Always ensure that someone has your location. You know, just to, like, the kinds of things. So I pointed out like 15 different points, but to specifically minimize against it happening. And I said, if you just want the woman in your life to haphazardly walk into a life, because I'm like, even I'm afraid of men. Right?
Your mesh. Like,
even I'm afraid of men. So I need to, I'm not.
You
I'm
also
not,
take precautions so
yes,
that you don't get in situations.
I'm not going to go to Hill, bro, and just walk around.
Step on people,
so, like,
and
that's
not
one of the things I pointed
apologize.
out. Like, don't go into dangerous spaces. Like, make sure, like advising a girl to, like, send their location to someone isn't crazy. And I'm like, I tell my nieces, like, if you're ever in a predicament, no matter how crazy it is, and you put yourself in that situation, call me. I'm not going to shun you. I'm not going to say, hey, sleep there. I'm not that kind of uncle. Like, I'm going to come fetch you. We'll deal with it later. Because you're in a situation, you're in a predicament. Are you fine with not telling women that? Because, like, you're not going to, like, the world is not perfect.
Mesh,
You need to acknowledge that the world is not perfect.
This group of, I don't know if it's actually it seems like a new thing, but there's nothing new under the sun. It's like this group of men or just people that come into the space that women are trying to create for themselves that is safe, right? And they come there as allies and they say the right things. They're like, they come in there and say, yeah, this shouldn't be this way. You're right. You shouldn't. And I feel it has some level of performance in it, in the way that it gets the female crowd to be like, yeah, that's an ally, that's our guy, we're going to protect him, we're going to be behind him. But it actually does not build. I feel that what we actually need is a fair and kind of clear conversation between the two of us as people. I need to come in and say, yo, I don't feel safe walking at night or taking a ride with my girls or just doing the simplest things or wearing a mini skirt or walking from... I gave this example to my brother the other day because I was explaining to him that, like, jogging in my area is so... I have to think about a lot of things, right? And these are things that I don't think a guy has to think about because I have to think, okay, what time am I going to take the jog because I know the construction guys in my area will be out at this point. And if I run at this time, I know I'm going to get catcalled at that time. I know I'm going to encounter so many, like, just things that I don't want to deal with. So now I take jogs at random times of the day because I don't want to deal with certain things.
And I can conveniently take a walk.
You
at
can
any
conveniently
point
take
of the
a
day.
walk,
Yeah.
right? But that does not mean that there are not situations in your life where you don't feel safe. The people that are creating the unsafetyness, still men, it's not like you as a man are absolved from not feeling safe because there's other men that are creating the unsafetyness. You also don't feel safe because there's guys with guns, you don't have a gun. There's guys with knives, you don't have a knife. You don't have the intention to be fighting a random dude at night. You just want to get to point A to point B. But there's different kind of levels and spectrums of these things that we both need to communicate about and kind of get to a space where we both are like, okay, sharp, what can I as a man do to protect you in this situation? How can I help you to make you feel safe, right? And I feel that we're missing that point because we are saying we are almost existing in this world where it's not supposed to happen, right? And because it's not supposed to happen, let's not talk about. And it's like, it's happening. We can talk about solutions. We can tell men or we can tell society not to perpetuate certain situations at the same time while protecting ourselves, at the same time while finding solutions to problems that we're facing. These two things don't have to exist like just
in
because
silos, no.
they exist together. While we're fixing this, we can also build this. While we're educating the boy child, we can also educate the girl child. While we're protecting the boy child, we can also protect the girl child. In no way does
I
that
hate
mean...
that I'm thinking about an example of a very dear friend to me, but unfortunately I need to bring it up. So I came across the police woman that killed her...
Oh, yes.
Like her family members over...
Policies
yeah,
and stuff.
and not that old, not the Netflix...
Yeah, I know the new one.
Not the show, the new one. So there was some guy who said, yo, I don't feel safe as a man. And then guys were in the comments saying like the kinds of things, but like being sarcastic, saying the kinds of things where, am I next? But like sarcasm, when they were saying the kinds of things that women say, right? And then I just took a screenshot of that just to see, I don't know if you saw the day, and then I just randomly posted it on my status to just see what kind of responses it would get from women specifically, right? And one of my friends was like, yo, so interesting when women dominate in male-dominated spaces. Funny, but I'm like, let's stress test that. Is it a good thing to say something like that? And that's the thing, we're becoming a desensitized society because it's safe for a woman to say something like that because there aren't perhaps enough cases for us to look at that as a problem. If
also, just because you're a victim in most instances does not mean that you're a victim all the time. Because there is, and we need to be honest with ourselves, there's women that do some really messed up things. It's messed up. And we shouldn't now say, oh, because you're a woman, that's not messed up. You killed your family members, and for policy, what? But that's even...
There's this old lady that's like my mother, right? Like, that used to live... That was my neighbor where I used to live, right? Yeah. So I visit her from time to time. She likes watching Moja Love. If as a woman you want to see how vile women can be, watch Moja Love. Like, just watch Moja Love. Like, if you think that women are these sentient beings, just watch Moja Love. Like real life stories. Like, and I'm not saying it's only women, but I'm saying just to see that the vile things that men are doing, like women are doing, maybe not at the same level, but there are a lot of women doing a lot of vile things, bro.
So now what do we get to?
Like, we need to be allies, bro. We're not enemies.
And true allies, by the way, please.
Yeah.
I honestly, it irks me so much when people present themselves as allies just so that they can be welcomed.
You need to know your place in life. Like, you remember that post about like the middle class and the affluent people, like, want to lead revolutions. And it's you're never going to be capable of leading something that mainly affects
a different
like disenfranchised people, because you actually live in comfort. So in as much as you're willing to engage with what's going on, you're always going to be limited by your comfort. So just be an ally, and the people that should lead this are the people that are actually representative of what's actually happening, right? I can't speak on the issues that are happening in Palestine and Gaza better than people that are actually there. So I'm better off just sharing narratives
and amplifying those voices
as opposed to like coming with a new voice about how, hey, there must be a two-state solution. No, if the people in Gaza are now saying what makes sense is a one-state solution and it's just going to be a Palestinian state, that's where we are because this two-state thing has failed. That's what I'm running with, because that's what the people that are experiencing that trauma are saying. Like, I can't engage with this thing without acknowledging the Nakba. If I'm not going to, if I'm going to say, hey, October 7, but you're not acknowledging that this is something that happened the same year that apartheid started. Like, that Israel is one of the only states that when the apartheid government was getting sanctioned, they were still supporting the apartheid government. That speaks volumes, right? That speaks volumes.
And also, I think your activism does not reflect, I mean, it is reflected in what you say and how you present yourself to the world, but it is more so reflected in your personal choices that you make for yourself. And when it's uncomfortable to make those choices, when it's uncomfortable to say, I'm not going to get a Starbucks Frappuccino because, you know what I mean? When that little inconvenience, when you're willing to sacrifice certain conveniences for you, for a cause that is, that you're an ally of, that's where your activism shows. Your activism is not shown I mean, it's shown, but it's really like putting a flag on your status and it's there, it's bringing up awareness. But honestly, when it touches you where you are uncomfortable, it's like during the apartheid system, we didn't necessarily appreciate the people that sat with us and said, yeah, you know, I also agree, hey, this is wrong and it shouldn't happen. We appreciated the guys that spoke up and went in the streets with us and went and, you know, did things in spaces that were comfortable for them, made their spaces uncomfortable so that we can be comfortable, so that we could be included in the conversation.
Dave Chappelle speaks of his father sacrificing like their livelihood because his father was working for a company that was working with the apartheid South African government.
Right.
And he stopped working.
Right?
Like, he literally stopped working. And he's like, he was saying that he was getting an award for something, an honorary award for something, but it was the same sort of speech where he was speaking about we've become a society that's trying to look at things from a spectrum of better versus worse, as opposed to the good-bad dichotomy.
I just want you guys to remember, you know, that right now there's this thing where ethics aren't what they used to be. This idea that people are trying to replace the ideas of good and bad with better or worse. And that is incorrect. You gotta keep your ethics intact because good and bad is a compass that helps you find the way. And a person that only does what's better or worse is the easiest type of person to control. They are a mouse in a maze that just finds the cheese. But the one who knows about good and bad will realize that he's in a maze.
Where things, like, you know, something is clear good or bad, but you're saying, this is better, this is worse, this is better, this is worse, right? And it's like, no, we see where you stand.
It's a good point to introspect
and
to think about, because as people, we need to think about ourselves like that.
Like, we need to be honest about the fact that if you're not going to stand for something, then you stand for nothing. Like, you stand for nothing and you stand for everything.
You know what? That's an even bigger conversation because
I hate where this chat went because we had so many amazing things to talk about. But like,
gosh, okay.
Yeah, what else have you been tapped into? And it's so crazy how it started with a fun story about...
and we just went on, but anyway.
You jogging, yeah.
Yeah, and embarrassing moments. And I was literally just saying that thank you to that brother who saved me from a even bigger embarrassing situation that could have happened. You know, if he sees this, I don't know how, but thank you so much. He saved my life. Okay. So something else that has happened this week that I saw was the Floyd Shivhambu.
And I have a super optimistic view on women, bro. Like, you know, like
Do you see, the thing is, when you bring up that conversation,
Like, I
it's like
honestly
what you
do.
said, that I'm going to be labeled as a pick me because I'm saying, like, I have really good men around me, right? And that's my experience. I mean, there's terrible experiences that I've had with men around me, and that is just like, like it's terrible. But there's also terrible experiences that I've had with women around me, and I can be honest with that. Like,
one of my most traumatic life experiences, like a woman was involved. Yeah.
But it's,
So that's why I'm saying, like, I think the individual sort of lens matters, right? Where I'm like, okay, how many situations of rape have I experienced? You get me? Like, and then it's like, okay, there may be 3 women in my life that have expressed that they've been raped. Okay, how many men have been violated by women? Okay, yes, there's a situation of a guy that I know personally that tried to get a protection order and he got laughed at, you know, by the magistrate. So it's like, okay, that's the statistics.
And even kids being molested by women, that's a whole
Kids
thing.
being molested by
That's a
women.
whole thing.
Like,
But to be honest, with that specific thing on the rape, sexual assault, and things like that, I'm telling you, right? All the women I know in my life have had an experience. All the women I know in my life.
yeah, but that
had
of
an
harassment,
experience.
like getting catcalled, makes sense. Because I've seen women like at a taxi rank. I've seen it happening in
You know
real
what I mean?
time. Yeah,
And it's
so I
this
can agree with that. I
conversation-
can agree with that.
This conversation, just because I'm saying there are good women, there are good men in my life that I see and experience in everyday life, right? Does not absolve the fact the a reality of the fact that there are women in my life still that have had experiences, terrible experiences at the hands of men.
And
These
I'm
two things.
I'm afraid of men as well.
Right.
So like as a man with sort of the masculine edge in comparison to women, and I'm already afraid. I can only imagine like
Right.
how afraid a woman will be, or how afraid a woman can be. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can also sit here and say, dude, I've had this specific situation I'm telling you about. I was at a park run. There was a bunch of women at the place. There was a bunch of different men at the place. None of those people told me, I don't know if they saw, but none of those people told me. It's this one guy that came up to me and did it in such a way that I could take it, that I can sit here and say, I had a good experience.
Yeah. His approach was right.
His approach was right. He spoke to me well. And these experiences that I have, if I don't talk about it, if I don't say, yo, I had a positive experience, I feel in some way I'm contributing to the narrative that all men are trash, or all men are...
Chidima
Additional.
Adichie. Yeah, I like how she articulates the one side story. You know, she's got a very famous TED talk on, like, you need to check it out. Like, where she speaks on like how dangerous like one side of a story is, and you can still man that into so many different aspects
Space
of
of
just
life.
life. Like how dangerous like just one side of a story is.
Yeah. And I guess it can only be done through collaboration, through community, through
Discourse, yeah.
discourse.
Yeah.
You can't, we as women can't solve the world's problems by ourselves. I mean, we have we might have the ability to do it, but we live in a society where men exist as well, and we're meant to be in community. So we cannot now just wear my clappies, as my mom would say, and close ourselves off to this reality that we live in. This is real life as a fairy tale. For us to solve these problems, we actually have to have honest discourse, and we have to be very clear on the things that men are doing wrong. I need to say that, like, if I'm in primary school and you're a teacher and you're like sexually assaulting me or harassing me, that is terrible. That is disgusting. That is wrong. If you're raping a 2-month-old baby,
Yeah.
there's no way a 2-month-old baby can protect themselves. No amount of teaching to a 2-month-old baby is gonna protect them.
I saw a clip of this girl that was just going at this man like, you're uniform, but you're catcalling me. Like, she went in. Yeah, you're right. Like, you need to call it out. You know, I need to be able to freely say, my friend raised a child until she was like 6. And then one of his aunts at a family gathering was like, that's not our
this
family. Did a DNA test and he found out it wasn't. And the moment he
guys in my life as well.
The moment he expressed that to the girl, she's like, yeah, I just thought you would have been a better father. So let's not act like men don't experience trauma. Like,
put that on a shirt.
Yo, no. Hey.
But anyway, this went all the way up.
Hey,
but actually, okay, so we've got a bit of time. I'm just gonna go run through this. It's a bigger conversation, but I don't know when we're ever gonna have this conversation, so I might as well bring it up. Yeah. So Floyd Shivhambu, I saw the SMWX interview, and I had like a few things that I thought about the interview.
He must come here to get probed because I feel like Sizwe's approach is like very laid back,
chill.
Yeah, he's not. And I don't think he's incapable. He's like a doctor from Oxford, so it's purposeful, you know. But he's very like. He just
Tell me your story.
Tell me your story. In as much as the story could have loopholes and parts you can
ask questions on. I think that was my main thing because he mentioned something that actually, right in the beginning of the episode, actually, he mentioned something about like they were wrongfully convinced to go after former President Jacob Zuma. And I was like, 10 things in my head went up. Like, ooh. What happened? What was the situation? How did you realize? Like all those questions I felt like went unanswered. And I think as the
another thing I thought about, like when that came up, that question is, since you're saying that you were forced or you picked up this wrong narrative and that made you run with how bad Zuma was, given that Cyril is like on the opposite side, why aren't we seeing that same energy play out right now with Cyril? Like, Cyril must go. You know?
Right? There were so many things I felt like that interview left me asking in my head. And I was just like, it made me think that like at the alternative media space, like podcast and all of that, these are great because they give people the opportunity to actually just sit down, tell their story, document what they're thinking and all of that. But I think we should caution ourselves from creating a space where people can rewrite history. You know what I mean? They can, like, I'm not saying that Floyd is rewriting history because I wanted to get those answers. And I didn't get those answers. But it made me feel like at the same time, as I could just come in and say, yeah, I've changed my mind. And the reason I changed my mind is because I was lied to. And that's the narrative that runs. And we don't sit down and say, who lied to you? What was happening? What was the situation around that? Because if we do not do that, we are letting somebody actually rewrite their actions, rewrite a narrative that they pushed so strongly for so long. And we have that responsibility.
Yeah, you need to actually present the same level of energy and vigor when you say I was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm gonna write a 100-page paper on something, and then 2 years later I say, no, man, I was wrong. I need to write a 100-page paper on why I was wrong.
And that's the energy I kind of expected.
Yeah, because we get a 2-page paper on a 100-page narrative.
You know what I mean? You ran with this whole thing entire, and now we must be like, oh yeah, that was wrong. You were convinced of this without the context, without the background, without,
Because
you know what I mean?
because we can just think now the only reason why you're saying this is because now you're associated with that organization and you've had a fallout with your previous organization.
And that's the other thing I liked the interview in that Floyd mentioned things that I didn't know. Like he mentioned how he was I've always kind of known that he
But
was
also that
instrumental
he keeps
in
saying
the formation
he
of,
keeps saying that, hey, we should not make politics about me.
but
It's a we thing. But when it's convenient for him, I came up with CIC.
I liked the fact that, honestly, I appreciated the fact that he said those things so that we know it's good information for me to know that happened.
But
And
do we
he can-
take it at face value?
No, but that's our responsibilities as podcasters, as people that are giving people these platforms to interrogate and to ask and to take the conversation conversation further. But you see, what I also felt like was I don't know if it was from a person that's looking from the outside, because I don't know. I felt disingenuous for him to be like, the relationship I had with this person was literally just like a political relationship.
Yeah. Because the brotherhood was gangsterism.
You know what I mean?
Someone that said, I told my son that if when I die, this is the first person you should call.
You know what I mean? Because think about this. We go to work. We have colleagues, right? And yes, we see them as colleagues, but there's colleagues that end up being your friends. Let's not lie about that. There's people that end up being part of your family because they're just that close to you. They provided whatever support you grew closer to those people. For you to turn around when it's convenient and be like, yeah, they're just colleagues. But that person was at your wedding and you didn't invite the whole of your colleagues to your wedding. You invited that person. That means that person, you had a closer relationship with that person than you had with all the other political friends. Or this person was invited to your special moments. They were there when this was happening. You were there when that part of their life was happening. So now I kind of get when Julius is like, it's painful, because it's almost like you're being gaslit into thinking that like the relationship you had was not a real relationship. It did not exist, kind of. So yeah, a lot to unpack there, and we didn't have enough time to actually get into that because I wanted us to actually dissect that interview and actually give it the full energy it deserves. But something to think about maybe in the future, to even talk about the GNU and how it's going currently and the impact it's currently having. So yeah, that time of the week, question of the week. Is it me or you this week? Because I have a question, but I'm not sure if it's me or you.
No, it's me. It's me because you asked me about names last time.
Oh, damn.
Now, I didn't have a question, but I'm thinking of a question. Who was, based off of just a recent interaction I had, who was your favorite, who was your favorite teacher? Like ever?
Ever?
Yeah, ever. And what subject
Ever.
did they teach? Yeah.
Ever?
Ever.
Forever? Sorry, Miss Jackson. Ooh. Anyway.
Or let's make it simple and say high school, because then
I think that's obvious for me.
Okay.
It's obvious. Wichibanga.
Okay.
That was my favorite teacher.
Okay, why?
Because I felt like because he was the only black teacher in the school for a very long time, he kind of ended up playing a parent role, a father figure role. So he was a teacher and he played
was
his
reliable,
role,
yeah.
But also he ended up just being kind of a father figure. And I can look back on things in times where he reprimanded me and I was just like, this dude. But now
it made sense.
It made
There's
sense.
no time
And
that Mr. Chibenga reprimanded me and it wasn't fair.
And he was one person where I think the one time he asked me about career choices and I was telling him like, this is what I wanted to get into. And I told him one of the options for me was like law. And he said to me, yeah, don't go into that, they'll kill you. And I was like, damn, like, And that made me want to go into it even more because
Yeah.
it was just like, you have a view of life that is not as accepted in some situations. So the views that you hold might get you into trouble. I guess that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah,
And
like
not
you're a
necessarily-
controversial figure.
Yeah, I might be controversial in certain
Yeah.
situations. So just,
Like he trusted you a lot.
he did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. So for
Yeah.
me, he was my favorite teacher in high school.
Yeah.
Miss Minnie as well. She called me Chatterbox because I used to talk a lot and I used to sit right in front of her. But like, I would say between Mrs. Minnie and Wichibenga.
Okay.
Who was yours? Oh, I forgot.
Chibenga's a
someone.
very close second, but like my favorite one was Miss Robla, like Nick's mother.
Oh yeah.
Like she was such an
was
amazing
so-
woman. Like, and it's
yes.
so you know it's so
Yes.
crazy how like even like Mini, you spoke about Chibenga. It's always language teachers.
Yeah.
Like
It's
language is such an interesting
Yeah.
because she was our English. I remember the days when like she was teaching us about Anne Frank. It was so engaging. The whole
Yes.
so
That and Frank story, I can never forget it.
so it's
Yeah.
like she was actually a lecturer at UFS, I think. So I met up with her again and she was like telling me how like Nick is playing hockey at UFS, so I should also play hockey because we played hockey in high school. And I was like, just thinking like I don't have that kind of privilege, you know, like to be playing hockey in varsity. But yeah, it was like she was special. Like
she was.
and to think of the
She
fact
had
that
this
like
kindness to her.
she was
like,
very
calm.
kind. She was very nice. And perhaps also because I used to see her engaging with us as kids, like outside of like Chikoroni, like because we like
Yes.
as at the 14 we were in this, me and Nick were in the same hockey team. So it's like yeah, before they left, because he left before matric, but it's like I used to engage, I was able to engage with her at a more intimate level. So it was like she was just genuinely a nice person.
She
She was a pastor's wife as well. So I think that played a role in the whole,
when we had
in the grander
debate,
scheme of things.
She used to bake like muffins and things for us out of her own, like just like
Yeah, she
being
was-
nice.
she was just-
she was one of the few teachers that actually supported the debate team.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so her, I actually have to mention somebody, and kind of this is
Yeah.
Botha,
Yeah.
Mads Botha.
Okay.
I was not great with maths. Like I was like 60s kind of well, it's not terrible, but it wasn't like amazing. When Botha came into the picture, like when
The game elevated significantly.
there was a time, I don't know if you remember this, there was one time I got 100% for a maths test. Like, and
We weren't in the same class.
but it was like throughout the grade. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah,
This was very,
yeah.
this
But
was-
also like I wasn't, I remember because I was,
This was a very big thing for me. I remember
Yeah.
it because I struggled with
Yeah,
it.
and like that was like you can attribute that moment specifically to like
that-
the impact
yes.
that she played.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
she gave extra time. Like I would just go ask her random questions. So it improved my maths so much
Yeah.
that So she's one of the people that I'll be like, I liked her as a teacher.
Yeah, she was fresh, yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
peace out for the.
Peace out.
Way we are out. We out.